Thomas.
Thank you.
All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and then I did press the record just because so that we actually have for the purposes of minutes, but also for people who cannot attend, we do post this document, a conversation onto our YouTube channel. So again, as a reminder for all, I would like to go ahead and welcome you all to Flotilla 12-6 monthly meeting for May 20th, 2021. And as a start, if I may, I will actually call upon, have everybody please stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance first. Pledge allegiance to the
To the
flag
flag of the United
United
States of
States of
America
America,
to the
and
republic
to the republic
republic
which it stands,
stands
one
one
nation, under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Thank you, everyone. And then if I may go ahead and call on Phil Poole to go ahead and give us an invocation.
I would be glad to. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. Grace and peace be with you this day from God our Father. Would you please bow your head for the invocation? Heavenly Father, may your Holy Spirit come upon us as we gather here in fellowship this evening. Help us to anticipate the good in others and always be ready for challenges such as next week's National Safe Boating Week. Let us be grateful and give thanks for each other, for life, for health and happiness, as we, the auxiliary, volunteer to serve and support our communities here in the Low Country of South Carolina. Keep us always in your care, O God, as your grace, mercy, and love endures forever. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Phil. And yes, only in light of reminders of so many people who do, unfortunately, live in the danger zone by being on the water and then not on being able to return. It only is. As some of you have seen in the agenda for this evening, we have actually two speaker activities. So we may have actually Lieutenant Whiteman, who will speak a little bit about the lanyard and then the kill switch and then the law and specifically what does that mean as we work to educate people. And I'm going to introduce him in a second and have maybe Don do that honor. But I also want to remind that we will limit our reports by officers, what stood in the actual newsletter, which, by the way, we are submitting out 3 of the best newsletters of the last 12 months for the district competition for public affairs, as well as Flotilla's video for the blood drive as activities showing what the Flotilla did really well this year. So we're very proud, and I want to thank Mike and then every single one of you for contributing to all this. So if I may, just as a quick highlight for the Commander's notes, the first one is you received in the newsletter an attachment that actually asks or calls for all of you to consider submitting. It's not a requirement for people in the past, but if you could consider submitting the ID card form, there's a form that requires your signature and mine eventually will be attested to it, which is this idea of responsibility. That we have. The ID cards remains a major issue. Don trying to remind everybody that there is concern, especially in light of security, access to base. ID cards have shown up for sale, and it is an issue of security at a multiple levels. So please consider looking at it from the Flotilla's newsletter, signing it, sending it to me. I will then sign it and keep a record of it. It is not required, but it will be required moving forward. So Craig and I still have yet to meet up in Hollywood, south of Charleston, but I have his ID card and I'll actually make him sign the form. So moving forward, everybody, all commanders passing on a form, it will be there. So on the TCT, Susan, do you want to quickly say the next point?
Yeah, let me update you. As you know, the recommendations and requirements are changing almost minute by minute. However, we have been cleared to give an in-person risk management TCT refreshers. We have scheduled 2 of them in person at the C School. They have opened up. I was out there today. That's where my tape measure broke. The first one is during the day, the 3rd of June. We will be posting these on the website, I'm sure, David. It will be from 1300 to 1700, though it normally doesn't take quite 4 hours. Vito will be the instructor for that one. Then we will have an evening one on the 9th of June. David, I think 1,500 is being a little optimistic. I'm putting it down for 1,800 to 2,200, but really I don't expect it to go that long. And we will have an instructor from 12-6 for that one. You must do the following things to be able to attend this class. You must pre-register with me because the room has a capacity of 24 people. That's it. And we will be opening it up to at least 12-8, if not to the entire division. You must have submitted your COVID form to your flotilla commander or your ops person. That is ANSI 7101. The current guidelines, current as of this minute today, doesn't mean they will be tomorrow. We will have 3 feet between participants, and you, both the instructor and the participants, must wear masks at all times. Now, if this changes, I will let you know right away. But right now, that's what we need. We need the COVID form. You need to come with a mask, and you need to pre-register. If none of these work for you, there is limited registration for an online class for the 25th, which is next Tuesday of the month, with John Tyson, who is an instructor in D7. If you will contact me, I will send you his information and you can get up with him. I was originally scheduled to take it on the 25th, but since we're doing them now, I don't have to. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Susan. That's great. So please send Susan an email if you're interested. We do want to get a count sooner than later. Which leads me to the next one, which is we don't have a final status yet, but we intend to actually have a final in-person option. Again, I say option, that you'll have the ability to Zoom in, at least until COVID is cleared. We will have a option with fellowship at the C School with a maximum capacity of 24 Flotilla members, and that will require pre-registration. So more information is coming out there. Please be patient with us as we're trying to roll that out, okay?
David, question. Who is required to take the TCT?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that. Okay, crew, coxswain, hold on, I got it written down here. I've just got so many notes.
Also.
Aton PQS has got to take it. Give me a minute. There's one other category. There are other categories too, but most of us fall into that.
Food services, Paul, Phil, I think your question.
No, food service does not have to take the refresher. They only have to take the original one. They do not have to take the refresher.
Every 2 years.
I've not been able to find that in writing anywhere. What I find on the national site is the only thing they have to take is the initial course. They do not have to take the other.
All right, Susan, so let's just not spend time. What it is Susan will send an email out to everybody who qualifies.
Yes,
I think Phil, that's the way.
Yes, I will. I was going to do that today, but it will be done.
All right.
Thank you.
If you get an email, please consider yourself invited and then consider doing it. All right, I'm not going to spend too much time. I want to thank John Fastanito for the effort that he's put in through this, and then also the work that many members here. I know that the slide hopefully shows what you have in front of you. Here's the list that we've reported from year to year, or in some cases when we have augmented equipment. And what you actually see, folks, is that you see in this flotilla list is what is part of our annual reporting when we go from flotilla commander to the other or from year to year. And what you have is you have the first column is the items that we actually have reported that we own, that the Coast Guard wants accountability for. And what you actually have here is you actually have what has been inspected, what's currently waiting for inspection. And then on the right is what currently is variant and more importantly, missing. So if you are a member in this flotilla that actually looks at this list and say, oh, yep, I may actually have an actual Mustang. I know there was an email sent out, for example, from Deborah, indicated that she had one of those. So the point is, we are looking for these items. We're asked to actually account for these. Mr. Rigger, Lieutenant Rigger, is asking for us to at sector. So I'd appreciate that everybody continue to work with John. He needs to do two parts. He needs to know what you have, and then he needs to coordinate with you an inspection on FaceTime or visually, but he needs to actually engage with you on that. So not just an email. So please be patient, but please report to John, and then and that will be it. So that will be the extent of what we're doing. But John, thank you again for your work. We appreciate that. And that being said, okay, I am going to go ahead. The purpose of this month meeting is really training and an opportunity to learn. So we're actually going to have two sets of individuals who will bring. So we actually have Lieutenant Corbett actually has been pulled as the Chief of Enforcement Division to actually meet a demand from command. So she will not be there, but we actually have Lieutenant Whiteman, who is over the investigating divisions at Sector Charleston. So I'm going to go ahead and then put those PowerPoint slides off, if I may. And I'm actually going to go ahead, Don, if you want to quickly welcome Lieutenant Wyman, and that will be great.
Yes, thank you very much for attending today. We appreciate all your time and effort that you've put into preparing and presenting for us today. So welcome, Mr. Lieutenant Whiteman.
Thanks, I'm happy to be here. So I've been Sector Charleston for about 2 years now as the Chief of Investigations. Before that, I was in Sector New Orleans for 4 years, 2 years as an investigator and two in inspection. So I'll start off like a brief history of how the kill switch law came about, and then I'll talk a little bit about how the Coast Guard plans to enforce it and treat it, and then I'll open up for any questions. So over the past couple decades, the Coast Guard's been noticing that on certain recreational vessels, if the master hits a wave and falls overboard, the boat will spin in a circle and oftentimes will run over the person and either kill them or cause significant injury. So in 2018, Congress decided to create this requirement, and they actually passed in that year in the OFF Act that came into effect in December 2019, a requirement that all manufacturers of certain vessels install this kill switch when they build the boat. So in 2020, in January, every recreational vessel manufacturer should have been installing the kill switch into all of their new vessels. In the Authorization Act for last year, they put in an enforcement requirement for the Coast Guard. This is what came into effect April 1st this year. So the actual requirements are only for certain vessels. So it's only if it was built after January 1st, 2020. And it's only for vessels under 26 feet that can make about 3 horsepower and that they don't have an enclosed wheelhouse. So for the near future, it's not going to apply to most vessels, and it doesn't apply retroactively. But if a boat was built in 2020 without it installed, it does have to be installed. So that's where the manufacturer was supposed to do it, but the law is written that requires the owner to maintain it and use it. So the other kind of weird part about how the law was implemented was typically when Congress passes a law for the Coast Guard, in the US Code, they say, Coast Guard, we want you to implement this. This time they actually, and then we can follow up with regulations to say how we're going to implement it. what they did this time was they just put it right into the U.S. code what the requirements were, and then they put in the U.S. code what the enforcement mechanism is, and they chose a civil penalty. But for a first offense, they're saying $100. Second, I think is $2, and the third is $3. But the problem is the Coast Guard doesn't have the manpower to do a civil penalty, especially for a dollar amount that low. So over the next year, the Coast Guard is planning to not issue any civil penalties. If they find a violation of installation, a boarding officer is not going to do any enforcement action. They're going to notify boating safety at Coast Guard headquarters. If they find a violation where it's installed and not being used when it's required, then they'll issue a warning. In a year, the Coast Guard hopes to have some other mechanism to issue tickets or other violations instead of having to do a civil penalty. But the number of boats that we anticipate running into over the next year that are not compliant, that are required to have the kill switch, we don't think is very high. So even though all these news articles that are out there right now are kind of scaring people, it's not like if you have an old boat, you have to spend a ton of money to put the kill switch on. But it is a requirement that boarding officers are going to start looking for. There's also no requirement that if it's installed and you have an enclosed wheelhouse that you have to wear it. There's also a couple times when you don't have to wear it. You only have to wear it if the vessel's what was referred to as on plane. So if you're idling, if you're sitting there, if you're going really slow, or if you're docking, there's no requirement to have it worn. But if it's on board, it has to work. So if it's required to be there and it doesn't function, then it is going to be considered a violation by the owner of the boat. But it's not anything that is something that boarding officers are going to be like writing up anytime in the near future. At least not until the Coast Guard can come up with a better way to enforce or to ease the manpower on the enforcement side of it. But I don't know if that all makes sense to everybody, but that's kind of the brief overview. So happy to answer any specific questions if you guys have them, if I can.
That's very helpful.
Sorry, I do also have a contact info that I'll email out of the person at headquarters who's been assigned to answer any questions. So if you have anything afterwards, he'll be the person to contact.
Do you actually mind putting that name into the chat room? The reason I say this is because we actually have a lot of people on this call that are actually vessel inspectors, and they're the ones, or vessel examiners, and they're the ones like Justo, who will most likely be interacting with the public, and many people ask questions. So I think it'd be helpful to just have that, if you have the ability to quickly put that in the chat room so that everybody on this call gets the email. That would be with no errors. That would be helpful. I think that this is very valuable for us to be able to hear it, not only the process, but also specifically. So let me ask you the first question, if I may. So how do you see are they issuing you really good binoculars to actually see whether the person?
No, so basically the way they're going to determine the age of the boat is by looking at the hull identification number. So the 11th and 12th number indicate the year the vessel was built. So if that number is below 19, they're not going to take any type of action. Not every boarding team, I think, even knows that this is a law yet. Which is why I was talking with Lieutenant Corbett about it, because I came across it kind of by accident, and she had no idea. So that's it should also be on the registration of the vessel, and it's the same thing. It'll be the hull identification number. Is I think the way we're being told how to determine the age of the vessel, but they're not gonna pull a vessel over just to check it, but it will be part of their actual boarding. It'll be added to what they look for.
And one last piece, can you clarify, and I think I read it from I did a review session, that DNR or non-federal Coast Guard agencies are in fact not going to be doing the enforcement of that part. So I think it's important for everybody to know that mission or that particular law only applies to the U.S. Coast Guard as the agency that actually enforces that particular code.
Now we do have a really good relationship with DNR. So if they notice it, I would imagine they're going to let the Coast Guard know, but they're not going to be the one to take any action.
Yep.
A quick question, Lieutenant. I thought you mentioned that you're only looking at boats from 2019 and newer. I thought the law went back to the early 20s and up as long as the.
So if I misspoke, sorry. No, it's anything after January 1st, 2020.
So
it's not what the articles say, but that is what the law says.
Also, anything older than 2020 doesn't have to have that kill switch?
Correct.
Wow. And so you say you got to make sure that they're working. I mean, you actually pull it to make sure the engine stops?
Yeah. Yes. So if it's I don't know specifically what how the boarding team will do it, but I'm gonna imagine they're gonna test it.
Okay.
Which that would be how you test it, was to pull it, see if it stops, kind of just like on a treadmill.
Good question, Craig. I think part of the inspection is to actually, but it'll be hard during the inspection, but recommend the owners when they switch their boat on every single time, the same way you're supposed to do a forward and reverse when you're still secured on the dock. That could be a great recommendation. Other questions, folks? We do have 16 members otherwise. This is insightful. We appreciate it. No other questions from anybody here on this call? All right, so just for some of you, you have a Thomas Dardis Thomas. No, I'm sorry, no, Mr. Thomas Dardis. And that's thomas.j.dardis@uscoastguard.mil. And we have a phone number, which is great. So especially the inspectors, all the people who are going to be on a operational setting, if you are operating boats or if you are going to be a coxswain or a crew, or that might be a good way to just chat down that number, because there might be some questions that come up, especially as you're operating on a dock with a bunch of individuals. So that's great. Okay.
All right.
Well, any last questions, folks? Well, Mr. Wyman, we appreciate it. I know that you all do a lot of work on the water, and enforcement is never fun, but it's necessary. And certainly it's part of being safe and doing what you need to do. So thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
And thanks, Don. And you're welcome to have the rest of your night off. Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Thanks. Have a good night, guys.
Yep, good night.
David?
Yes.
Let me go over the people who need to take this one more time. I found my notes.
Okay.
Anybody who's operationally qualified, anybody who's a telecom operator, a watchstander, has an AV PQS, or any crew candidates.
Trainees, great. Okay.
Okay, those are the people who need to have it.
On the yearly, that's the one that's the need on a yearly basis. Is that correct?
That is the yearly basis, 3 to 4 hour presentation. Yes.
Okay. All right.
The other one is online, and you have to take that one first. Okay. Introduction to risk management first before you would be taking anything else.
Great. Somebody online asking a question? We do have 16 people on the call, so we will grab the opportunity. John Swink reminded that we do want to ask for a voting or a review of the minutes, if people had a chance to review the notes that John put together of our last meeting. I do want to remind people that if you are missing the meeting, it is available as a recording. We post it onto our Flotilla 12.6 YouTube channel.
David, I also just want to remind everyone to sign in for you. I noticed only a few have.
Okay. In the chat room, folks, if you don't mind, please go ahead and put name, ID, number. That would be great. I'll put myself.
Okay, can we have a motion, please, to accept the minutes from someone who isn't an officer? Anybody?
Motion.
I move
Thank
we-
you.
Okay, all right. Second,
Okay. Ed passed with Mike as a second. Appreciate that, folks.
Sir.
Okay.
Vote.
I'm gonna go ahead and
We need to vote.
oh. The
Thank
motion.
you.
So who actually is in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Any abstention? All right. We will have Dennis join us. He is joining us at 7:35. He's not yet on the call, but he should be coming on shortly. I want to give a quick little shout out. Bill Garvey actually is currently not on this call. Good for us. He is, and Walter and other individuals have worked to actually work very hard at getting proclamation. I'm very happy to see that the work for this year's National Boat Safety Week, which is next week, is in full-fledged. There's both a public affairs effort, and again, all of you are advocates. So you saw the article in the Moultrie News, which was this couple of weeks ago that I sent out to everybody else. We were also a letter to the editor in regards to safety was also featured, I think yesterday or the day before. And happily, we are actually receiving tonight the 5th proclamation, and full value here. We got featured, by the way, heavily onto the Charleston City meeting with the mayor indicating that his best friend had died on a boating accident for not wearing life jackets. As you may know, 70+% of people fatalities on the water are linked to not wearing life jacket, which is a significant concern, obviously. So whether they have some value or not. So that's there. You are not seeing, by the way, at the bottom of the screen, you see something like a shadow of actual life jackets, wear it, National Boat Safety Week. There is a PA effort. I have a challenge. I put it in the newsletter. So you can actually try to find 3 Charleston County landings in our AOR. And if you take a picture of yourself in uniform, and found the 3 locations, then we'll recognize you next month. So this is kind of like a little bit of a hunt, if I could call it. So hopefully you're challenged to that. But we have posted a total of 9 actual signs throughout the actual our AOR. This is our Flotilla 12.6 AOR. It is a public landing that's managed by Charleston County. So that's the hint that I can give, and that's the only hint. So you'll see the little shadow. I will disclose exactly where they're out next month for everybody else. All right, Mike, I'm sorry if you want to come down from Pittsburgh. You're welcome to come over, to do so. On the right side, folks, there is Luke has worked hard to put out some patrols. We have actually 4 confirmed, and we may get a 5th one. But if you're interested, here are the listed people who are operational, qualified, or REYR, or possibly who are currently working on trainee or as trainee have been notified of the opportunities. So please send Luke and Luke only a request onto which days you might be available and what status are you in. And based on that, the operator as well as the coxswain will work to populate and finalize the crew for each one of those. So this is a showing of the flag, They're not training missions. They're just like an opportunity of being present for some of these activities. So that's the National Boat Safety Week operational. I do want to also make a plug in. Philippe is unable to make it. He's requested that you specifically submit independent hours as part of your May hours, if it's in May, or if you've done stuff in April of PA related efforts. So it will be a code 10 or 10A, if I believe, where you would put down the amount of hours that you've prepared, that you've engaged in, if you've engaged the public or people to talk about the wearing of life jacket associated with National Boat Safety Week, report it. A quarter of an hour, a half an hour, 3/4 of an hour, a full hour associated with that. So we do want to be able to put people down for National Boat Safety Week. It usually comes with a recognition in September or October. So please continue to do the good work, but do take the time to report it because we want to make sure that our flotilla gets recognized for that. So any questions about the National Boat Safety Week?
David, I apologize. I missed the first part of what you were referring to with the landings. You said 3 photos at a landing wearing a PFD. I missed the first part of what you said. I apologize. Had some technical difficulties.
That's okay. I have put some wear it signs as part of the National Boat Safety Week. There were actual signage that was given to us by the division as part of that effort. I have positioned a total of 9 signs at 3 different public landings in our AOR. So the challenge there is for you to possibly visit those places and take a selfie or a picture of you next to one of those signs. And if you can actually take at least one picture at one of the 3 sites, some of the sites have more than one banner, then we will recognize and create a collage of pictures for next month. Okay,
so it's just 1 photo or is it 3?
It's 1 photo at each of the sites.
3, all right, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
It's a little bit of a treasure hunt. So you actually want to try to find at least a sign at any, that's the part that I'm challenging you all. And please show up in uniform because obviously that would be the best effect is as you interact with the actual public, you may actually see operators and you may engage with them, talk to them about things like wearing life jackets, things like possibly working to actually think about the kill switch and educating them and doing anything associated with a possible vessel examination. So that's the work that we're all supposed to try to promote.
David, has the mask requirement been lifted just in case we are in uniform and have our pictures taken for any publications? Want to make sure we're in compliance.
It's best to actually wear the mask. This picture right here that you will actually see, interesting enough, actually has me with the mask next to the sign. Yes, so it's best that you do so if you want to share the picture. Now, by the way, the picture for use for the flotilla is okay. It just won't be able to be shared in other way, form, or shape until the guidance has changed.
There was something that came out earlier this week, the regular Coast Guard notices that I get that the mask requirement has been lifted.
I know.
David, this is Phil.
Yep.
There was an all Coast Guard message that came out last Friday. It identified that if you have both COVID vaccinations plus 14 days, then you are no longer required to wear a mask. If you have not had the vaccinations, then it is mandatory that you wear the mask.
David, I believe I sent that all coast message to you.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it currently only applies to the U.S. Coast Guard, but not the auxiliary. So that's the guidance, and we are waiting for updates and news, and it could change at any time. Phil, the question I think that is very pertinent to what you do is when you do visit on their base, you follow their. We did ask that question this morning specifically of our chain of leadership, and we're asking for clarification. So I know it's a little bit ambiguous. It's just that the Commodore right now says, please stand by, we're about to change it. So as it stands right now, we're in this like awkward position. So I know it may not seem like clear, but right now that's what we've been told. If we go on base as auxiliaries, we can comply to their guidelines, which is we don't have to wear, and we can go into like the brass buckle and train in that at that facility.
Roger that.
Let me say one thing here. I learned this many years ago in the auxiliary. If you don't see it in writing, it doesn't exist. So no matter what anybody tells you about anything, if they cannot send you the written memorandum from the Coast Guard or the auxiliary, don't go by word of mouth. If you don't see it, it doesn't count. We've had a problem because of something that someone was told, but there is absolutely no record of this ever being official, and it has caused some problems. So if it's not, you don't see it in writing, it doesn't count.
I have it in writing from the commandant and the chaplain of the Coast Guard, so it's there.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about your thing. I'm talking about anything. Because what we got was something totally different, did not have anything to do with masks, okay? But
Roger that.
we had a problem.
Right. Well, that All Coast message did specifically say the auxiliary. It was listed right in there. It's specifically in that note. I looked at it twice to make sure I read it. It's in there. And I
That is correct, but our, as auxiliarists, we have to follow what our command says, not what the Coast Guard says. So as an auxiliarist, our command trumps what they say as far as our business. Unfortunately, we have to wait for them to say it's okay.
Yeah.
unfortunately, we're not in First Northern, but I already know because I got a friend up there that talked to me about it. First Northern auxiliary, they're not wearing masks. And I don't know what's going on with 7th District, but I understand what you're doing, but I'm saying we don't have to wear them, and there's proof. And I don't think anybody's going to get in trouble over it either, because they're just, I don't know, they're fiddling around. It's a little bit annoying that they can't get their stuff together better.
Agree with that.
Yep. I'm just asked
No
for clarification
argument
this
there.
morning. So Dennis is not joining us yet. So let me go ahead, if I may. Sorry, I'm just trying to show the minimization here.
Oh, David,
Yep.
go back to that slide for just David's. Up the chair.
Hold on.
It would be nice if you had the date as well as saying Monday.
It's Monday next week. I
Yeah,
hope
I know,
people can
but-
look at their schedule. So
Monday, May the 23rd would be better than just Monday. I'm just saying, okay? Double everything. That's it.
all right. I like to right now. Oh, Dennis has joined us. Perfect timing. Hi, Dennis.
Hey, sorry, I'm having some connectivity issues.
That's okay, sir. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm gonna quickly show people. It's a single slide. We just had a presentation from the enforcement, and then but I wanted to again welcome you. For folks, for people who don't know Dennis, Dennis is actually a specialist. He works with the emergency preparedness here at Sector, and he works specifically in a bunch of things. But I have here, Dennis, if you see it in a picture, a little bit of a command post, and then there's a bunch of, for some of you may not know, there is an activity. Obviously, we work alongside the Coast Guard, and some of the things that you may not know is that we actually, as Coast Guard auxiliaries, actually have an emergency management and disaster response division specifically, though Dennis is not here to speak about that specifically. but I had asked Dennis to kind of just come and brief us for just about 10 minutes, just to discuss a little bit about the emergency preparedness in general and the role of the auxiliaries in that total picture. And also hint out, I've already indicated to all of you that there is a master planning exercise, a tabletop with two very distant activities that are happening that are going to be the 21st and the 22nd of July. They're going to be, by the way, tabletop activities indoors in a building. So for some of you worried about July, hot weather and being outside, that's for like real events. Is that correct? But in this case, we're looking at having a heavy auxiliaries activity presence, which is to help do the registration and some of the manpower, and then also observe some of these activities, and some of you might be interested. So it's a good use of, and we're looking for people to work for a full day on those days. So they're going to be starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, 0800, and then should finish at 1900. So on both days. But Dennis, if you want to quickly kind of speak a little bit about what goes on in emergency preparedness here in the sector Charleston in general, and by the way, it is a recorded session, so obviously you're not going to be sharing any kind of security stuff. But that being said,
Great. Good evening, everybody, and I appreciate you for having me. Just give a little bit of background on myself is, so my title is Port Security Specialist, and so what my role is to ensure that the whole of government is working together for the security and preparedness for the Port of Charleston. So we ensure that the Coast Guard, the auxiliary, DNR, Charleston County, all our local police folks are all working together. So for example, this week, obviously down in Kiowa, we're all working together to make sure that security is pretty tight down there. In addition to that, when an incident occurs, whether it be a hurricane or any other kind of incident in the port or in the low country in general, and we send up an incident management team, I typically serve as the liaison officer. So what will happen is each incident will have a liaison officer, and then we send representatives, Coast Guard representatives, to all our county emergency operations centers. So, and that's where David and I were talking that maybe we can work, figure out how we can plug some of the auxiliary folks into our incident management team as Coast Guard representatives at our EOCs. So if you can imagine, I typically will manage every coastal county EOC in South Carolina and Georgia. So we're sometimes struggle getting folks in county, in Georgia that, it's obviously easy to.
Yeah, and
What's
you want to switch the video off because your sound is breaking off, sir.
Okay, I apologize.
That's okay.
Yeah. So the auxiliary has a program to certify auxiliary members as Coast Guard agency representatives in ICS. So one of the goals is perhaps that we, through the exercises we have planned in July, one of the goals is to work on that for you guys to sign some of those, some of your PQSs off, and then you serve as our agency reps. So whether it be in Charleston County or Berkeley County, or there's EOCs, in the event we have an incident, hurricane or whatever it may be. So one other interesting thing is this week, we actually had Coast Guard Cyber Command in Charleston. So we had 4 captains from Coast Guard Cyber Command come into town, and apparently a auxiliary-wide survey went out last year requesting anyone who had cybersecurity experience to return the survey. And there's 500 auxiliaries throughout the country that have cybersecurity experience. And the Coast Guard as a whole does not have a lot of folks with cybersecurity experience. So we're trying to leverage our auxiliaries to support from a cybersecurity standpoint, not just in an incident, but anytime that they could provide their services. So that's a brand new program that's just being stood up. I just learned about it yesterday, in fact, from Coast Guard Cyber Command. So those are just a couple of the ways that I think that we could get you guys plugged in to work in our incident management team. And I just kind of wanted to give you opportunity to ask me some questions specific about emergency preparedness and incident command. I know most of you are all familiar, But did you have any questions about the training, what's available to you, and how we can support you?
Hey, Dennis, there's a question from somebody who's not here that actually has heard about the area representative. And one of them is, it's a pretty comprehensive PQS, by the way. It requires a significant amount of online courses. It does require a board where you'd actually have to demonstrate knowledge in emergency management and understanding the NIMS and the incident command structure and all kinds of stuff. So I just want to make sure that people understand that it would require you, the same way we speak, with the voice of the Coast Guard on communications on the radio. In this case, you'd actually be the person who will be the voice of the Coast Guard at that particular liaison, or area, So is there a way of, and this is the encouragement I'm trying to give people who might be on this conference call, to consider part of the commitment on the 21st and 22nd, where we could possibly then think about having review sessions or stuff after or along that same week, just what I'm saying, to prepare to work towards that beyond doing the online PQS courses. Does that make sense? Because we're looking for mentorship and making sure that people are up to par so that we build a program. And it could be that we do this even before that, so that evening we could have maybe 2 people scheduled for a board afterwards. Just what I'm saying, or I'm just trying to make good use of your time in the context of what you're doing. Because again, folks, the 21st and the 22nd, you're looking at how many agencies are going to be representing fairly, Dennis?
So between the 2 exercises, you're looking at probably more than 50 different agencies. So those are both federal, state, and local agencies, as well as our industry partners as well.
Yeah, so it's an unbelievable
over
experience.
50 different agencies.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable experience to actually see. Yeah, it starts in the morning, it starts with an incident, and it actually unfolds, and people actually have to get organized and prepared to prepare a response, including an IEP and all kinds of stuff. So it's very interactive. So for some of you might be interested in emergency management, it's the closest to the real thing, I call it.
So we will use those exercises to actually certify our active duty folks in different positions. Mm-hmm. So I'll just give you a little bit about the exercise. I don't know have you told them anything about the scenario, David?
I only gave them the basic premise, the active shooting followed by a spill. Okay. I didn't give more than that, sir.
Right. So we have a requirement to have several plans in place, contingency plans. One of those being a security plan, and that requires an annual exercise. So what we're going to do is we're going to exercise that security plan with on the 21st of July with an active shooter. So there'll be an active shooter on a barge. Excuse me. There'll be an active shooter on a barge. And the port will have to come together on how to respond to that. Some of our police officers will be practicing tactical response to that. So how do they go from a police car onto a police boat, and then how do they approach a barge with an active shooter on it? There'll be some of that, but some of the agency heads will be at the Citadel, and we'll be making decisions on, okay, how do we recover from that? How do we turn it into a crime scene? And then the next day, that barge will ultimately end in a pollution incident. And then how do we respond to and clean up that pollution incident? So as part of that, we will stand up an incident management team. So if you're interested in any sort of emergency management, we, in addition to helping, with the logistic support like David was mentioning, we can partner you with that, whoever that position is in the incident management team, with that PQS. And so we can sign off a lot of your PQS as we go through the exercise, because you're going to get essentially real world experience. And that's what the PQS requires. So most PQSs require you to do either an incident. It requires an incident or an exercise or 2 exercises. So it would be one of those you could knock out, or if you participate both days, you might be able to knock both of them out. So even if let's say, for example, you weren't necessarily interested in the agency rep qualification, but you were interested in a safety officer or a public information officer, we'll have all those positions filled. So you could partner with that person and sort of walk alongside someone who's already qualified, and they could sign off some of those PQSs. Is that going to answer your question?
Yeah, Dennis, that's great. And so if people are interested, please send me an email. So I will be the conduit.
Perfect.
And that way I can work to populate, and I can coordinate with Dennis. Obviously, the Citadel is where I work, and we're hosting the preparation. And there's a planning meeting coming up at the beginning of June for that July activity also.
So
Specific.
one of the things we were talking with our command staff just this morning was some of the gaps that you could fill if you get these qualifications is every summer we have a massive transfer season, and a lot of times we'll have there's a gap there where the new folks may be here, but they're either not qualified yet or they're just brand new to the area. So it's hard for them to sort of fill some of those gaps. So it's an opportunity for if you get those qualifications to step in to really fill a gap that we can't organically fill. We obviously leverage our reserve experience, our reservists as much as we can. And when it comes to a hurricane, sometimes the way funding works from headquarters is we can't get our reservists until after the storm. Well, when it comes to specifically those agency reps and our EOCs, we need them there, a couple of days before the storm starts. So sometimes we're playing catch up just because of a funding issue kind of thing.
And sometimes the event doesn't hit, so you don't get the funding at all.
Correct. Right. So
I've been at the Charleston County EOC. Yeah, I've been.
We may not get those reserves.
Yeah. So that's great. Folks, any questions for Dennis?
So I will tell you a little about myself is because I'm a civilian, I live in Mount Pleasant, live in Dunes West. So God willing, they'll bury me here one day. So I don't transfer. So whatever you need, if you need anything, I've been at the sector for about 11 years and, I probably have 15 more in me before they get rid of me. So I'm happy to always be the conduit to support you any way I can. And obviously I live east of the Cooper, so I'm more than happy to support you guys. Anyway, whether it's coordination with our folks on the water, the station, or our partners on the water, or from emergency management standpoint, happy to help any way I can.
That's great. Thank you so much for taking the time, Dennis. We appreciate it. Family life is also important, and I know it gets busy. So.
Well, I apologize for the connectivity issues. I was on and off Wi-Fi and finally went outside.
Yeah, it's good copy. All right. Folks, any more questions? Last question, last round? No? All right. Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate it.
David, thanks so much. Have a great night.
Take care. You too. Okay. Pretty informative, hopefully meeting for some of you, taking some key takeaways. If you're interested, please let me know. I would like to now take the time to do a couple of awards. And especially, I like to make one to actually Mr. Poole. You snuck out a little early at the last meeting. Not that you did, it's just the meeting ran late, and I'm sure had maybe dinner arrangement. This is an important award, so I wanted to take the time to actually give it to you, and I'll put it in the mail, but I didn't want to just put it in the mail without actually telling you. You actually received a pretty prestigious, it's a meritorious team commendation that has been issued. And if I may, for all of you, and I'm not going to make you, Phil, stand up and come in the front of the room, but you standing next to the flag, and I certainly appreciate it. And it reads as such. The Commandant of the Coast Guard's pleasure is presenting the Coast Guard Meritorious Team Commendation to Mr. Phil Poole, United States Coast Guard Auxiliary District 7 Chaplain Support Team, for service set forth in the following. For exceptional meritorious service from January 2019 to December 2020 while serving on the United States Coast Guard District 7 Chaplain Support Team. Recognizing the critical need within the U.S. Coast Guard for supplemental clergy services, the team provided auxiliary chaplain support to the active duty corps by delivering a meaningful invocation for change of command, retirement, funeral, burials at sea, weddings, baptism, hospital visitation, blessing at the fleet, and special memorial services. Displaying outstanding professionalism and proficiency, the team also provided over 3,700 hours of Coast Guard operational support, conducted more than 900 visits to U.S. Coast Guard units throughout the district, logged over 3,000 hours of chaplain standby support, drove over 38,000 miles. And I know that Phil does his fair share of driving around because I get the emails, by the way, that tells me where he's going and when, and I appreciate that. And spent more than $27,400 in non-reimbursable expenses for the U.S. Coast Guard chaplain support missions. The team's effort to promote religious and personal well-being within the U.S. Coast Guards to better meet the needs of members had a profound impact on expanding and improving pastoral care for active duty personnel throughout the District 7. Through its extraordinary effort, the team greatly enhanced the image and reputation of the U.S. Coast Guard and the Coast Guard Auxiliary. The dedication, pride, and professionalism displayed to the District 7 chaplain supports are in keeping with the highest tradition of the United States Coast Guard and the United States Coast Guard Auxiliary. Signed, Commandant Mr. Espizo Young, Captain of the U.S. Coast Guard, Chief of Prevention Division, 7th District. So here you have it there. Phil, congratulations.
Thank you,
Work
David.
well done. Work well done, sir. So it will be coming in the mail, and I don't have envelope issues like I had with the Joe Ego. So, and also another award for you, Phil, which is the Auxiliary Performance Award. It's an appreciation of outstanding volunteer contribution for public education. That one is signed February 2021. It definitely is back ordered, is that correct? Considering that we've been in hiatus for a great part. But again, continue to help with that. We certainly appreciate it. One person who's on the call, Walter Ronk, the Auxiliary Membership Service Award presented to Walter Ronk, 7th District, Flotilla 12-6 for 10 years of valued service to the United States Coast Guard Auxiliary. So Walter is incognito behind the screen, but congratulations. And again, thank you for all the great hard work. Unfortunately, Luke is away. This is the third time I've been trying. Luke has had, unfortunately, a friend of his pass. So we'll keep his family, who's actually currently suffering greatly from this event, in our prayers. But that being said, he has also received finally a certificate of telecommunications operator, which, by the way, I don't know if Walter will update us next month on updates on what's going on in that process, but at least there's hope, even if it takes a couple of years to do so. So, and that is the only awards that I have. This is the end of our meeting, which ends almost at 8 o'clock. I'm feeling pretty good, pretty well run. So unless there's any outstanding issues, this is meant to be a guest-driven meeting. So any pressing matters. Otherwise, we will, again, Susan and I will be working to send out information on RSVP and then what our next meeting will be, which will be a optional face-to-face as it was detailed earlier. So if I may have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn.
Joe Ego. All right. And a second.
Second.
Okay, Ed has a second. Thank you, everybody. Thank you again for your hard work and service. And I wish you a great evening.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
Good meeting.
Good night.
Bless everyone.
Yes. Mike's so good. Oh, Mike is gone.